Good afternoon and welcome back to live streaming coverage of the Goldline U.S. Open Contender from Blaine, Minnesota. My name is Jerry Gertz of curlingzone.com, joined by Chelsea Carey. Welcome, Chelsea.
Thank you very much.
We're back for the third draw of the day here from the Four Seasons Curling Club in just on the outskirts suburbs of the Twin Cities. Blaine, about 20 minutes, half-hour drive of downtown St. Paul. We've got a good battle here between two up-and-coming young U.S. women's teams. A team skipped by Madison Bear, another one skipped by Christine McMakin. These two teams are both part of the U25 program in the United States, something that's new this season. They're providing these athletes with a bit of resources and more access to opportunities as well, which is great to see, especially with all these young players coming up in the United States.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit on the earlier broadcast. The interest in the U.S. and the talent level has come up dramatically. Started before the infamous gold medal there, but certainly that didn't hurt. And it's awesome to see it happening, to see these young players coming up in the development of the junior program, to see things like, Corey Dropkin and the Young Bucks, and Corey himself just started a junior program himself, an online one, which is awesome during quarantine. And it's so exciting and such a great time to be involved in the sport in the US. It's been really fun to see that development.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the evolution of where the program is now. I know the discussions around this right now about, they've been funding, some athletes at the top. The challenge now is with the number of good players coming out of juniors, they need to figure out where to put them.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge, actually. Like, depth is a challenge in pretty well every country except Canada as far as curling goes, right? So you have to develop that. It's great to give money to your teams that are already good, but then what happens when they retire? And then we see, countries fall off the map for a few years until they get another team coming up. So you're starting to see a lot more forward thinking and development planning, which I think, again, for the sport long term is great news. And it's also a great opportunity for these juniors to get the chance to play in spiels like this and to work with people like a Corey Dropkin at Kitty's Club, have that coaching and have that involvement. I know Tyler George is involved in some coaching with some junior teams now too, which, you can't get better advice than that, right? So it's, I wish I'd had those kind of opportunities when I was a junior and I was doing it in Canada, where we probably had more than just about any other country.
Yeah, I know that is certainly a challenge even in Canada still today. It's we have a problem of too much depth. Like when you
Yes.
look at some of the top young players coming up in the game, one of them I've kind of told this story a couple times, but like I've had conversation with Matt Dunstone and he's seen very little funding
Yeah.
when you consider one of the top young players in the game, certainly one of Canada's top prospects. But to get funding in Canada, you actually have to perform to a certain level, and they're just not quite there yet.
Well, and
They're real close.
yeah, that's the challenge. And you're right, it is too much depth. So you see the top teams getting the funding, and they're doing as good a job of it as they can. They're trying to spread it out, but the reality of the situation is you have so many good teams that you can only do so much with the amount of money that you have. And we're actually quite well funded, I think, by the standards of just about any other country. But because there's so many good teams, it gets spread thinner, where in other countries they kind of give all that money to three teams instead of here you've got six top men's and women's teams, plus you want to fund some juniors, like you say, some up and coming players. So it gets spread thin really quick because we're good, because we have depth, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's sort of the chicken and egg thing, right? Do you fund the
Exactly.
teams to get there, or do you fund them when they get there?
Yeah, and you have to strike some kind of balance, but where does that land? It's just a very tricky situation.
So early in the first end here, got a few rocks up in the middle.
Yeah, we've got some clogging of the center line for sure. This looks like some kind of peel run back attempt.
We've got Team Bear out of Chaska, Minnesota, taking on Christine McMakin of Fargo, North Dakota. Bear team has got Anne-Marie Duberstein at third, Taylor Dries at second, Allison Howell at lead. Again, these are their registered lineups. We're not 100% certain who's dressed here, so we're just trying to do the best we can. The anonymity of the masks on the ice.
Yeah, it's even harder to tell. It's like watching any other hockey or something. Everybody's wearing a helmet. Pretty good attempt there by Team Bear. Didn't quite wanted to hit that first rock just a tiny little bit thicker. And then that red stone that you see out on the side of the edge of the 8-foot there might have ended up behind those corner guards instead of the yellow. Worked out not bad, but could have been amazing if they got just a tiny bit more of that first rock.
Of course, this Team McMakin throwing right now. Christine McMakin at skip. Kathleen Duberstein at third. Battle of Sisters at the third stone here. Jackie Lemke is the second, the veteran on the team, and Nicole Prohaska is registered as the lead.
That's got to feel weird. I played against my sister once when we were, I don't know, I was probably 10 and she was 8 or something along those lines. And it felt strange even then. I can't imagine doing it at a competitive level like this. Oh, that worked out actually pretty good. Now the yellow rock is in the open for Team Bear so they can chase it.
Just asking for a tight guard here.
Trying to make this curl by sweeping on the left-hand side of the rock as we look at it. Didn't quite get there. You can see pretty much that whole yellow rock.
Yeah, it looks like still a hole right through that gap there.
Interesting that they are choosing to throw the in turn here. My first thought would be the out turn, only because the hole is staggered the wrong way for the in turn. So I know you can see more of the rock on this side, but you have to get past that long guard and then it's going to continue to curl. My first thought would be to throw the out turn with some weight, like a firm takeout weight. You can make it either way. This looks a little trickier to the eye because that long guard is kind of ominous. You got to basically just get past that.
And looks like they're having exactly that kind of trouble with it.
Yeah, I think that's just an easier shot with the out turn. Like I say, I mean, it's certainly makeable with either one. You could hit that half a rock is okay. So throw the out turn with some weight, put the broom in the middle of the rock, and just make sure you make contact with shot rock.
Yeah, a bit of a missed opportunity there because I'd expect this guard to be better this time.
Yeah, you would think so. They just threw it. So, I mean, I think it actually would have got there if it had a little bit more weight. So either you take a little less ice and throw the same weight, or you could throw 3 feet more weight and it'll curl enough to cover. You don't have to cover the whole thing. You just have to basically split center line on this. Is a pretty good spot. So now you can see them sweeping on the opposite side from the last time I said that the person on the left was sweeping to try to make it curl. Now you see sweeping on the right-hand side, that's trying to keep it straight. They were trying to get by that, I think. It was heavier than they wanted it to be, but if you could have ever got that by that top yellow rock and just snuck it a piece around, it's still pretty good. This gives a chance for Madison Bear's team to roll buried. And the run back on the yellow is going to be a little bit tricky. You can see just all of that yellow rock probably, but just. So if you make this roll good, you might make it a little bit tough on Team McMakin.
Yeah, I'm not sure I love the roll here as much as making the double, though, either.
Depends what you're trying to do. The roll sets you up maybe a deuce. The double gives you the blank.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just concerned that this shrinks down the scoring area significantly. Even if you make a really good shot, McMakin can come down, tap the yellow one up, potentially, maybe B shot, but at a minimum be second shot and make it really hard to score too.
Yeah, it's true. But it gives you the chance of two. You make the double, you're getting the blank. So, they're deciding, to me, this is an offensive call. They're deciding they want to try for a deuce. And if they get forced, like she still is going to have probably at close to full forfeit for a single point. So relatively low risk, but for sure it takes away the chance at the blank, and it does potentially set you up to be forced. This is a lot of weight again to throw at this, so. Had to stick there. So now it's for sure a force, and it might be a really hard score. The biggest thing there wasn't making the roll perfect. It was sticking your shooter somewhere in the house for shot rock.
Even if you nose hit that,
Exactly.
It would have set up a fairly straightforward hit for your last one.
Yeah, you have a fairly easy, not easy, but a very makeable shot for one. And now if you make this good, you could get kind of top side button mostly buried. Now all of a sudden it's a draw to the pin or a gentle little tap that gets tricky because you can't tick the top one. This end just got a lot more complicated based solely on the fact that she threw that pretty hard, and I don't know that she needed to throw that with like a control or a bumper versus a solid normal, and make sure you stay for shot somewhere. They're sweeping to keep this straight because it's coming up a little bit light. So they wanted that to bury around, but it worked out pretty good because now she's either got to make the double or she's got to draw around both. And drawing around both is tricky because if you ever tick that top one, you might give up a steal of two. So choosing to play the double here, it's not a terribly difficult double. Half a rock, a little less. If you threw this hard enough, you actually probably could get a blank out of it, but I'm not sure she's going to attempt that.
Yeah, get that spin up and around, right?
Yeah, if you hit like a thick half, but you need to throw it really hard to do that. If you hit a thick half and then you kill the back one, your shooter flies out of there. But like I say, that's got to be a heater coming at you.
So last rock here in the first end. Madison Bear throwing here. Looking for the double to score, or if you can hit it just right, maybe even spin that shooter out and blank. It's going to hit it a little too thick, spin across the top, and it's going to be a steal of one here in the first end. Bit of an unfortunate mistake there for Team Bear.
I think the mistake really was her first shot. She put herself in a position by rolling out on the first one. Now you're going to have to make something more difficult. If you stick somewhere for shot, then all of a sudden you put the pressure back on Team McMakin to force you to make something. And by rolling out there, she left quite a big opportunity for McMakin, and the shot wasn't even perfect, but it worked out good enough that, she was forced into a tough double and didn't quite pull it off.
Yeah. Heading to the second end here now at the Goldline U.S. Open Contender. Madison Bear gives up a steal of one in the first end to Christine McMakin. We'll continue with the hammer here in the second, looking to get that multi-point score.
What's interesting about that, though, and you know the numbers better than I do, Jerry, as far as what that does to your chances of winning the game. The thing about it is that if you didn't have the hammer and you forced the other team to one in the first end, you'd be really happy. So giving up a steal of one, how bad is it? I'm not sure it's necessarily all that terrible.
Yeah, it's sort of one of those things. Anytime you're tied with the hammer or up one without, you're about 55 to 60% to win the game from start to the end, just about. Like last end is a little bit different, but for the most part, most of the ends go that way. So you go from, especially this early, it's probably about a 55-45 scenario. So you're, now playing the second end. You look at McMakin, they're about 55, 57 to win, and Bear drop down to, the opposite side of that.
I mean, it feels worse than it is stats-wise, I guess, is my
yeah, it's still close.
Like you're giving up a steal, so you feel like you've sacrificed this huge thing, but it doesn't hurt you as much as it feels like it does as far as your kind of your gut where you feel like you got the hammer and then you gave one back. You can get some offense in the second end, it looks like. Sweeping to get this to curl a little bit. Line looks pretty close, a little deeper than they would have wanted. This one needs to curl. It's not quite going to. So a little bit of trouble early for Madison Bear. Rocks back T-line, but it's biting a good chunk of the button. So still a fairly dangerous stone now that McMakin gets the opportunity to put another one in here or throw a guard. Advantage yellow at this point in time.
Yeah, McMakin with a good setup here. Yeah, Christine skipped a team into the U.S. Nationals last year, and then they picked up Patty Lank to skip the team at Nationals. So it was a great learning experience for Christine. I know I talked to her a little bit around that event, and she certainly learned a lot from that weekend. And, it's great to see some young players get a chance to get some mentors and other players coming in and helping out like that.
Yeah, it's a smart move. It's a bit of a Brad Gushu, Russ Howard kind of a situation to do something like that. Bring in somebody with all the experience that you could ask for in Patty Lank. So very smart move for young players. I know when I came out of juniors, I spent a couple years playing with a much more experienced curler who had won a lot, and it taught me a lot. I became a different player, and I learned so much from that. I mean, it was a big part of my development and growth as a player. So definitely something worth considering and a smart move by McMakin to do that. And it's a bit humbling, like, you're bringing in somebody else to skip and when you've skipped a lot and things, but it's just so invaluable to have a mentor like that.
Yeah, I think it goes a long way to show that it's somebody looking to improve, to get better, and a player is willing to step down and let somebody else take the reins for the week as well.
100%. And I think that the I think trying not to think of it as stepping down is part of the key to it, and it's hard to do that, especially when you're somebody who's skipped a lot. But I think that locking yourself in as a skip early in your career probably isn't the smart move anyway. So spend some time. You gain a different appreciation for it when you play different positions, and just think it's such a valuable learning experience to do that, regardless of who it's with.
A little bit of an out here possible now for Team Bear. That last draw just sort of bounced off.
Double is there. It's not easy. You've got to get by that guard fairly tightly to make it, but you could. And even if you don't make it perfect, if you just kick that yellow rock, the second yellow, out a little bit into the open, it's still a pretty good result because you'll stay partially buried with your red shooter. Got to get by the guard, though.
Yeah, that's the absolute worst way to miss that.
Yeah, you had to make sure you hit that rock regardless. If you hit it on the nose, it's still a better situation. The only thing you couldn't do is what they just did. So it's one of those where you need to get by the guard tight to make the shot, but you almost played on the safe side. And unfortunately for Madison Bear, that's not what happened. And now she's in a bit of a world of hurt right now, needing a big shot, some kind of run back or double or something to get her out of trouble. Because there's really the biggest problem is that in that guard that's blocking your in-turn draw, you can't even get in there for one that way. So you're limited to the out-turn side. And unfortunately for you, Team McMakin also knows that.
Fairly well placed center guard there.
Yeah, really good. There's no double opportunity on the ones in the house, so you got to try to make a run back combo here. Would love to get one of those top. We talked in the last draw about the control zone. Those two yellow rocks are in such a great position right now for McMakin that if you're Madison Bear, you want to move at least one of those off so that you give yourself a chance at being able to at least draw the forefoot for your single at the end of this end. Looks like it's going to be a little thin. Might catch it. That's a great shot. You couldn't have asked for much more than that. So now she's got the out-turn side open, which is the side you want because, like I said before, the in-turn draw is actually blocked by that corner guard. I know it doesn't look like it. It looks like that's a big hole, but the ice here in Blaine, from what we saw before, curls so much that I don't think you can make that in-turn. So now at least she's got an out. She's got a draw for one, and it's a little bit less terrifying as a skip if you're a Madison Bear.
Yeah, that's sort of what you're looking for at this level, right? Like you're not expecting a full miss. Even a half shot miss at times is difficult to get out of your opponents. So you kind of want to just sort of inch your way closer to being better. And you're seeing this out of the Bear team here.
I think at the end of the day, what you want to do is leave yourself a shot for one and then hope you can get more than one with a hammer. Is in a perfect world, that's kind of your goal. But you always want to make sure you have that shot for one. And it didn't look for a lot of this end like they were going to, and now they do. So that's the good news. It's not looking great for a multiple point end, but as long as you can at least save your single point, you're okay. You're tied. I mean, it's not great because you started with a hammer, but it's not terrible. It's still a very doable line score. But if you give up another steal, now you put yourself in a bit of a hole. So now, at least for Madison Bear, she does have this out-turn draw. She's going to try to make a play to set herself up for more than one, but it's less ominous than it was a couple minutes ago.
Looks like just a straight peel on the top. I think they were looking at trying to dig the stone out in the rings, but decided it was too buried.
It's quite buried. So again, if you just tick the guard, you put yourself back in the same position you just got yourself out of.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you were to do that, then they draw another one around, and now you're in real trouble.
Well,
When the reality is you're probably not going to score two here, so forcing the issue too hard is not ideal. And
yeah, I think at this point you take your medicine. There was a couple missed shots early. You just make sure, like I say, you make sure you have that shot for one. Right now, that outturn draw is there all day, and hopefully she feels good about the speed in that spot. But it looks like the ice is pretty good, and the speed should be pretty similar everywhere. So no need to take a bunch of risk to try to get to when, like you say, I think it's kind of a take your medicine situation with the way this end developed early for Team Bear.
Christine, daughter of Sandra McMakin, longtime coach around USA Curling. She's been in and out of with different teams, and now her daughter has taken up the sport as well.
So challenge here with that result is that you might have left a double and roll here for Madison Bear. However, I'm not sure she'll be shot if she makes it. If you hit this 3/4 on the high side, on the left-hand side as we look at it, you can definitely kill both those yellows and roll behind the guard. You might be shot, but I don't think you will be. Either way, for Madison Bear, you just have to make this double, regardless of where your shooter ends up going. Just make the double so that you have a bit more of a scoring area in the forefoot there. And if you end up shot behind the corner guard, then you might get a bit of a dirty 2 out of it. But just make the double and take your one, worst case scenario.
Take them any way you can get them, right?
There's no pictures on the scoreboard. The tough part about this shot for Madison Bear is there's not a lot of room for error. You can't really afford to over curl it. You can't really afford to under curl it. You just basically have to make it. And that's always a bit of a tricky situation, although sometimes it makes it easier. You're not trying to protect one way or the other. You're just throwing it to make it. And often that's the best way to do it.
Need to catch it one side or the other.
Needs to curl, I think. Oh no, actually. Well, one way or the other, they got caught in the middle there. The good news is that it does move it out of the forefoot. So it did give her a little bit more room.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Depending on what, but again, an opportunity here for Team McMakin to make a come around, because even if you set up a run double for Madison Bear, it won't be for 2. So low risk opportunity here to kind of tuck one around here, or what she's indicating is back to the earlier situation in the end where you've got both draws blocked off. So then what does she do? She has to make a run double just to get one. The other good news for McMakin here is that the line is actually kind of the same for both. If you're trying to stop at top 8, you want to be edge of the button, edge of the forefoot. And if you want to go top button, you want to be biting center line, just across biting center line. So you can kind of pick your line and then make a decision based on the weight as far as which option you're taking. And if you want to go top button, you want to be. So you see the right side sweeper here again is going to be doing that to try to make a curl. This is very late. I guess there's a chance they haven't been out that wide yet. So they might have got into a new path speed wise. So that's always a bit of a tricky situation where you don't know, you think it's probably a little heavier, but you don't know if it's 2 feet or 10 feet when it's fresh pebble out there. So a bit of a tough one for McMakin there, missed opportunity. But again, now if you're Madison Bear, you just watch McMakin come up 25 feet light. It gets in your head a little bit too. So we'll see how this goes for her. It's going to be against two. So this is a huge shot.
Yeah, it's always a chance of zipping this one on through.
What's so easy once you watch somebody come up that light to think, wow, it's really heavy there, and throw it a bit harder. You have to basically pretend she didn't throw hers and you didn't watch it, and just talk to your sweepers about the path and make a decision about what you think the weight's going to be and go from there. But that's really easy for me to say from here. And that's the great part about doing the commentary instead of being the one throwing this rock, because it's hard to actually do that in practice.
You got it. Looks like last stone here, I believe. And it comes up short. Oh, sorry. Gave away the storyline.
I was like, what? You're being all seeing and future predicting again.
I'll get it. Probably by the end of the final on Sunday. Yeah, there it is. Unfortunately, Madison Bear comes up short here in the second end. That will be a steal of 2 more here for Christine McMakin. Just a bit unfortunate for Bear. They had the open house and didn't make the adjustment after watching McMakin throw down that same spot.
Well, but that's the part that's so tricky, is like what I was saying. It's so easy to watch her do it and then throw it really hard. So it's a bit of a tough one. And she took a little bit less ice because McMakin was trying to keep hers out a little bit wider than Madison Bear was. So, you know, they obviously decided within their team that the spot would be okay speed wise, and it just wasn't. Obviously, it's a bit heavier out there, but that's a really tough position for Madison Bear, because you're trying not to overcompensate for the fact that she came so light, because she might have also just thrown it light and you don't know that. But then trying to still factor it in. It's just, those ones are really tough, and it's unfortunate for Team Bear that spot did end up being that much heavier.
Back here into the third end, Christine McMakin and her Fargo, North Dakota squad lead 3-0 over Madison Bear, curling out of the Chaska Curling Club in Chaska, Minnesota. My name is Jerry Gertz of curlingzone.com. We are covering the U.S. Open Contender here, sponsored by Goldline. They're playing out of the Four Seasons Curling Club in Blaine, Minnesota. Happily joined by Chelsea Carey, giving us some great insights here, some feedback, and just hearing a little bit from a familiar voice.
It's a little different when I'm not screaming at the top of my lungs, but
Well, that's the great part about the sport, right? Like it's it's something about the personalities behind the sport. It's really good to get to know them. Unfortunately, sometimes the challenge is when you see game face only, it's they're only seeing one side of you out there.
it's pretty different. It was interesting. I was out at my family's cottage in northwestern Ontario this summer, and I was at the grocery store, and so I'm wearing a mask, of course, and I went up to the register, and I had my Scotties necklace on, which I didn't even think of, and the employee there is running my groceries through the till, and she said, "Is that a Scotties necklace?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." And she said, "Are you Chelsea Carey?" And I said, "Dude, like my hair was up in a bun. I'm wearing a mask." I was like, "I'm so impressed that you recognize me." And she said, "It's your voice." I was like, "Okay, well,
Nice.
I mean, I guess fair enough." But apparently it's enough to recognize me even with a mask on and no makeup and my hair in a knot.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting dynamic for what our sport gets in this country, right? It sort of gets put onto that same pedestal as a lot of the other pro sports. The Scotties, the Brier, of course, the Grand Slams on Sportsnet. Get to be seen side by side with all the other major pro sports out there, which is really unique for a sport, which is still truly amateur at the end of the day.
Yeah, we're very lucky for sure with the coverage that we get in Canada and the great support that we've had from TSN and from Sportsnet and from with all the TV coverage and everything else. It's really quite incredible. Again, and it's increased significantly since Sportsnet's involvement in the slams, and now all the slams are on TV. It was the Brier and the Scotties that were on TV forever, but that was pretty much it in Worlds. And then all of a sudden now we've got 6 Grand Slams that are on TV, and it's been huge for our exposure, for our sponsorship and everything. And so we're in Canada, we're extremely lucky for the coverage that we get and the attention that we get, like you say, relative to, hockey and basketball and football and everything. We're right in there with all of them, which is incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty unique seeing Grand Slam promos during the World Series.
Totally. That is like the coolest thing in the world to me. And people constantly are sending me messages if I'm in the Grand Slam promo, which occasionally I am. And they will text me and be like, "Oh, I'm watching the World Series, or I'm watching the Super Bowl, or I'm watching whatever." And then you're in a commercial. Like, that's insane. And we didn't have that for the longest time. And so to get to that point, to even be kind of in those features, and not that it shouldn't be, it should, but it wasn't. And so to have that, to turn that corner and have that exposure for us as curlers is just massive for the sport, for the teams individually, for the players individually. It's huge.
Yeah, now the next step is getting those prize purses that we see at those events, right?
Yeah, that or the salaries. That would be
salaries.
Good.
Yep. Yeah, unfortunately this year, like everything, the Grand Slams postponed until April. They're going to pick up and run the Champions Cup and the Players Championship off of last year's rankings, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's what I read as well. Which, I mean, that's unfortunately, they made the right decision. It's unfortunate, and it sucks for the players that were excited to go to these events, but there's not really a safe way to do it. And I think it was a responsible decision on their part, especially because you have so many international teams that would be involved in all the slams leading up to that. So now you're bringing in people from other countries and things, and that creates a bit of a scary COVID situation if you're not in a bubble, which it wouldn't have been. So it's really too bad, and it's hard as a player, and I'm sure for the fans as well, but it's the right move. So we hope that in April they can run it, and at least we'll have a couple at the end of the season to kind of tide us over.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought that the Grand Slams might be have the best chance of running, myself included. But when you really look at the challenges the other sports have had, it's the travel to get to the bubble, which was the problem.
Well, and the problem with a bubble for curlers is that most people have real jobs, like other jobs aside from curling. So now you're telling me that I got to be in this bubble for however many months, and I have to take that much time off work. And, I think that's a large part of the challenge for curling, is that so many of us have full-time jobs as if we weren't, because we're not technically professional athletes. So that creates a whole different dynamic where the teams from other countries probably could have done it a little bit more easily because most of them just curl. But for Canadian players and teams, it's hard to do that because you're missing that much time at work. So I think everybody hopes that there would be a way to run them. And I agree with you that they would have been the most likely to be able to run. Because the no fans thing affects the slams and the Brier and the Scotties less than it does the smaller events in theory, because it's TV ratings that matter in a lot of ways. But it's hard to ask curlers to go in a bubble because we're not guaranteed a salary from curling. It's just not the same thing.
Yeah, the other challenge behind it too, of course, is that there's a financial impact on every positive COVID test around the sport as well.
Yeah.
You know, you look at what Major League Baseball has been able to do, basketball, hockey. I think they're all a success at the end of the day based on the way that each of them is running, but there's still positive tests and they can handle the repercussions from that. Whereas, you know, the cost of something like that around curling is certainly a lot more challenging too.
One, I think the way you get no positive tests, like the NHL has had no positive tests, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah, there
because
was some to get to the bubble.
yes,
And
but
again, with curling, that's the problem, right? Like you'd still have to travel to get there.
right, but within the bubble, there's been positive tests in every other sport, I believe, aside
I
from hockey.
Yeah, I
So
think the NBA has generally avoided it. I can't
they've had
remember
a
one for
couple, I
sure.
think,
Yeah,
but not many. Like it's been pretty good.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, if once you get to the bubble, it's okay. But again, so now you need to get to the bubble, and then you need 2 weeks of quarantine, and then you start
yeah,
just to make sure. And then how do you even quarantine for 2 weeks when you're in hotel rooms and stuff? So that's fine. So you do that, and then you start. But now you're telling me if I need 2 months to run 4 slams, then I have to be in the bubble. Now it's 2 months and 2 weeks. Like it's just I'm taking an entire season off of work if I'm a person with a full-time job. And the players in other sports have families, so that part I don't even comment on. Like you're away from your family, fine. Well, so are they, but
yeah.
they're guaranteed their salary and we're not. So it's just different because you can't make people be away from work for that long when they might need that for their livelihood. Where professional athletes in hockey and baseball and football and basketball, they don't need that. Their salary is paid by their organization and it's more than enough to cover their life.
Yeah, that's certainly, you know, the compensation is definitely different. And, you know, you hear a lot of the players talking about the challenges of being away from families for months on end. You know, as athletes, they certainly already face some of that, but it's definitely not that amount of time. So,
Oh, for sure it's a challenge. It's just that like that's
yeah.
common with curling and everything else. It doesn't, that's the same for all the athletes that would have to be in a bubble if that were the case, because unfortunately, that's part of the deal when you're going to have to go and isolate yourself to be able to play.
So instead, we're going to kind of bubble it up in smaller regions.
Yeah,
We
something
got
like that.
We've got this event here in Blaine, Minnesota for the United States teams. I know they are not allowed to travel pretty much anywhere in the world right now.
No, they're
You've
not allowed
got,
in many countries right now.
yeah, there's some challenges going on down there. As of, you look at Canada, you've got some events being built, working on. I know the men's side, it seems to be sorted in Alberta right now with a couple of ATB classics, one in October, one in November. And then Switzerland, you can see the curling going on right now. I believe the quarterfinals for the Adelboden International are just underway. So if you want to split screen us, there's an opportunity to watch some more curling as well, or load it up when we're done here. And then, of course, in Ontario, we're coming up with the Stu Cells Oakville and Stu Cells Toronto in a couple of weeks. Plan is to still run. We've got a pretty decent field there. Some top teams are coming out to play, as well as some regional favorites, and we're hoping to stream that from start to finish as well.
Yeah, thank you. So Team Bear looking for multiple point score here. given the deficit that they're currently facing. This looks really close. Might have not curled quite enough, maybe just a shade light, but still a good setup. That run back is queued up pretty nicely for them right now. So for Team McMakin here, going to try to do something to stop that, because they could sit 3 pretty easily there if they hit that red rock, that guard. Just a shade on the high side, even on the nose is probably pretty close to leave them sitting 3 behind cover on the center line there. So a pretty good setup right now for Team Bear, needing to score a couple here. A lot of debate. If you're Team McMakin, you could throw a guard on this and try to protect that run back. You'd guard that red guard longer and try to take it away, but it's a little bit scary. If you don't make it, you leave her the opportunity. So you could throw a draw in there somewhere, but that's scary too. It's a bit of a tough situation. It looks like they're throwing some kind of guard here, I'm guessing, by the ice that she's taking with the intern. So if that's the case, going to try to leave that almost as long as you can on the right line. So just need to get somewhere close to the center line. And then the longer it is, the better, because the more separation between your rock and that tight guard, the harder the shot is for Madison Bear. So here's the indication. That looks a little bit tighter than I would be trying to bring it, but they're thinking this is a little bit heavy. Don't want to line up an unmissable one. Needs to curl a little bit. I think that worked out okay, but so here's where, if we could see the overhead to see how much separation there is between those 2 guards, here's where the drag effect might come into play, where if those are frozen, then it looks like it should go by that red rock. If you hit that on the nose, it looks like it should go basically past that one in the top of the forefoot. But if you hit it on the left-hand side as we look at it, it'll actually drag that back rock towards the center line, and it might work out really good. So depending on how much separation there is here, there still might be a shot for Team Bear.
Back with you again here. Little refreshment break. Fill up the coffee.
It's a long
the
day.
child a little bit.
Pretend to be a parent for a little while.
Yeah, today's going to be a day full of video games and Minecraft for him, I'm sure.
Screen time, all the screen time for Joss. It's I'm a little surprised they're throwing the out turn at this, which to me maybe suggests that the drag effect isn't there. But even then, I'm not really sure why you would choose this turn, because the double peel, if that's what you're playing, is easier with the in-turn.
Question is how far back is this going to drag?
But that's so this is the same question that I'm not sure why you would hit it on that side if you were trying to drag it. Turned from a pretty good opportunity for Madison Bear a couple shots ago to a little bit of trouble again. She's not shot rock, and if McMakin, even if she just throws a guard on this, I don't think there's a way to score more than one for Madison Bear, and it's not an easy one. She's got to hit full 4-foot.
Yeah, that was her own stone that she picked out there. Had she hit, like you were saying, on the other side, you would have likely seen that rock come straight back, and she might be lying 2, maybe even 3 now.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't really understand the turn choice, and I don't. I'm not sure if their intention was to hit on that side, but I don't know why it would have been. There's no way you were getting anything good happening there if you hit it on the right. But if you hit it on the left, as we look at it, you might have got some drag and some action into your own rocks in a good way versus picking your own rock off there.
Christine McMakin looking to go top 4 here, but anywhere short is fine.
Don't want to bring this too deep if it's wide, but it doesn't look like it's deep. I actually think they should not be sweeping this to curl right now. Just leave it out there. That's a pretty good shot. Makes any
be a
draw.
little teaser draw on both sides.
Yeah, the draw's really tough now on either side for Madison Bear. It's there.
That's what she's got.
You can get through the hole and
have to make the score.
Yeah, it's the only shot you have, but it doesn't look pretty from the hack, I'm sure.
Last rock here in the third end. Madison Bear, a tough draw, needs a good piece of the 4-foot to score here.
Really just
A little bit of a hiccup there with the stream. Didn't quite pick up what happened, but we will know as soon as the first rock is about to be thrown. Be a steal of 1 or a score of 1 here. So in the end, it was a tough end for Team Bear.
Yeah, they had an opportunity there, and it kind of got away from them a little bit. A couple little miscues, and then a questionable call with that, which side they were hitting that run back on.
So it was a steal of 1. Team McMakin went first here again in this end, so that last shot from Team Bear didn't quite get to the 4-foot where they needed to. First stone into the rings, now up goes the corner guard here.
Hmm. So it looks like with the hiccup in the feed here, we didn't quite see the result, but not quite made. Very tough shot that Madison was facing there. So she's going to continue to have the hammer. Down 4 now, so definitely needing a multiple point score here. We're going to see some corner guards probably and a lot of rocks in play. If I'm Team Bear, I'm trying to keep every single rock in play. Even yellow rocks are your friends right now.
Yep, if the other team wants to put rocks in play, it's certainly helpful for you at this point, right?
Yeah, leave them in there as much as you can. But again, we talked about this again on the earlier broadcast. The challenge with the 5 rock rule for the team that's up without the hammer is you can't really play defensive. So you have to put rocks in play. You got to throw some guards. You got to throw some come arounds when all you want to do is go peel rocks, but you're not allowed to. So it definitely makes it a bit more interesting strategy wise for the team that's winning right now.
Yeah, it opens up the door, right? You can't turn to defense too quickly because before you know it, you've been in defensive mode and the game is tied, and then you got to figure out how to turn the gas on again.
Well, right. And what do? You throw 2 rocks to the host and you give them a chance to throw 2 corner guards that you can't peel. So you have to put rocks in play. It's it seems wrong. Like every fiber of your being as Team McMakin right now will tell you you're doing the wrong thing. But in the 5 rock rule, it's your only option. You have to stay on the offense. Without the hammer, there's just really not a lot of way to run and hide with the 5 rock rule, which is the whole point of it. So that part's effective. But as the team that's leading, you wish it wasn't the case.
Yeah, it's sort of the thing when you start talking about approach out there, right? Teams typically would approach the game based on scoreboard. If we're up, we don't want rocks in play. If we're behind, we want rocks in play.
And I think that part stays true. You just can't do it until the back half of the end. So you can't really start the defensive
not nearly
parts.
as early, right?
Yeah, exactly. So for your lead rocks and your second rocks, you don't get to be defensive yet. And then once you get to third rocks, you start hitting everything in sight if you can. But at that point in the end, you might not be able to anymore, depending on the setup. So you still have to have your lead rocks at your second's first rock at least in a good place as far as draws go, or else you put yourself in a hole that becomes hard, and then you have to make a decision again. Do you switch to offense, or do you stay trying to peel? But if you put yourself in a bad spot early, the chances of you getting up at 3 are really high, which isn't horrible for Team McMakin right now because they're up 4. But you'd love for it to be 1 or 2 instead of 3, obviously. Really good shot here. You couldn't see a whole lot of that rock. They squeaked that top guard. So this is another one that's a bit tricky. I talked about it before where in this case, it's the right turn to throw the out turn, but you have to throw this a little bit harder than I would want to if it was up to me, if there was no guards in play. I would like to throw this with like sort of a solid bumper board. But in order to make this roll, you have to throw it a little bit harder. It looks like they're going to miss it on the high side, which is actually not that easy to do. But because of the guard in play, you have to throw that a little bit harder than you would want to give yourself a chance to make that roll. But again, the challenge for Madison Bear is you have to stick in a house somewhere. And so now you open the door back up for Team McMakin to put the pressure on you. At this point, if I'm Madison Bear, I just want to get rid of the hammer, which is not normally your attitude. But when games are going like this and you just can't seem to get over that hump, sometimes it's better to just give it away and try to steal it. You got to change something.
Yeah, it's never a good day when you're holding the hammer all day long, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, like you want it, but you don't want it all day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, a little bit of it is just trying to figure out the finesse of the game here, right? And this is a good setup for Team Bear. The rocks are not in a dangerous spot. The Yellowstone is a tight guard, so you can run it back if you need to. And this is a situation where if you're Team Bear, you just want to move stones back. Just bump
Yeah.
them behind the tee line, try and give yourself some space in the forefoot, but you like having those rocks in play. The lesson we were told right from the beginning of this end, just by you here, right? All game long.
Yeah. What I question here is it looks like she's playing a freeze, which if you make it, you might be shot rock. You got to move that a little bit, I think, that yellow. But I
Yep.
wonder about throwing it with like a back 8 foot weight. Because if you tick the guard, you give yourself some corners. If you rub the outside one, you probably still roll buried. If you make it good and move it back, you give yourself a little bit more room. A dead freeze, I'm not sure is that helpful because of where all the yellow rocks are. I think I might play this with like a heavy draw versus a straight freeze.
Yeah, I agree. It just gives you more room to work with because if you make the perfect shot here, then you might just perfect your shot into being forced.
Exactly, which I mean is better than giving up another steal. And actually, that weight was perfect.
That's
So,
exactly what you wanted to actually throw. It wasn't exactly the call, a little bit heavy there, but
and
that's brilliant.
I mean, maybe it was the call. I could be wrong. It just the ice to me looked like it was a straight freeze call, but
Yeah.
you just had so many options. It's rare that you're in a situation where you could tick either of these two rocks that you're trying to come through the port of or get through, and all of those things are good if you throw the right weight, which that was.
Yep.
Looks like they're going to be on the guard here, so the door is back open for Madison Bear.
Now that corner guard
Possibility
comes
of
into play as well.
100% it does. Loop one right around that corner guard and set up your possible two.
Madison Bear skipped her own team as part of the HP program last year. And the year before that, she played lead with Corey Christensen.
Played against
So
her when she played with Corey. I actually think I played against her when she skipped last year too. She's a good player. Mechanics are like technically very good.
yeah, I think this is she learned some hard lessons last year. I know they had some struggles when they went out to some of the bigger events they played, but a very young player. She's like a sponge as well. Wants to pick up all the information she can, and she absolutely loves the game. And those are the types of players that will grow into strong players down the road, as they really want it.
If you're not willing to get your butt kicked by good teams, you're not going to get any better. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. I did it. Everybody that's good has done it. You pay your dues, and if you're willing to do that, you'll eventually get good if you can stay the course. And it obviously looks like she's on that path, which is great to see.
Yeah, we were all on the outside of those 11-2 drubbings back when we first got started back in the day. It might have been juniors for some
Exactly.
of us. It might be right now for teams like the Nigerian side who is here playing this week.
Yeah.
And but we all got to start somewhere, and it's great to see these teams giving that a go.
People ask me for years. I mean, I grew up in Manitoba. I lived there forever, and um, when I moved to Alberta, they said, "Are you crazy? Like you might have moved to the only province that's harder to get out of than Manitoba. Why did you do that?" And I say that because my goal isn't to just get out of the province. My goal is to win the Scotties or the Canadian Championship when I go. And playing in Manitoba, was it frustrating? For sure it was. Like you got to get past Jennifer Jones, and for a long time, Kathy Overton and Jen and I were all top five in the world. The three teams in Manitoba that were all top five in the world, and only one is going to the Scotties. Well, yeah, that sucks, but it also makes you a better player because you're playing against those teams all the time. You're at every spiel with them. You see them everywhere, and you get better because of that. So having good opposition is frustrating because you're going to lose a lot, but it also teaches you how to win, and that's the difference.
Yeah, it makes you battle tested for when the big games are on the line.
Well, and you learn from them because they're good. Like they're better. They were better than me my whole life, so I had to learn from them. And I mean, I'm certainly not better than them. I'm not saying that, but I've gotten way better as a player by learning from playing against really good teams. And
You've
that's what
certainly had your
you,
days, Chelsea. Nothing to be shy about, for sure.
yeah, I'm not Jennifer Jones, but I've done okay. But my point being that you get better by playing good teams, and it doesn't feel like it at the time because they're drubbing you, but you progress from that and you learn from that and you become a better player and a better team by going through those experiences. And so it sucks while you're doing it, but if you can stick it out and stay the course and try to take your lessons instead of being frustrated by losing, you'll end up being way better.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. It's the kind of thing too. Familiarity with your opponents is also something at the same time as well as you get comfortable playing them. You certainly see a number of times where teams will step out on the ice and the game is already over because of the profile of the team they're playing against.
Well, and
You
what
know,
you do to start the game, even like I know if I'm playing Rachel and she has the hammer, she wants to blank the first end. So fine, you know that going in, so I throw a guard against her. If I'm playing Jennifer Jones, I know she wants to get two with the hammer in the first end, so I don't throw a guard. I throw it in because she's going to throw a guard. You
yeah,
know, like the familiarity, like you say, definitely plays into, and then you get so used to being familiar that then when you play teams you don't know, it throws you for a bit of a loop because you don't know what's coming next, where you feel like you do against the teams that you play every week, which I mean, you play them every week, right? But that's always an interesting thing too when you're playing against a team that isn't in the slams every time, or you're playing in a spiel in a local spiel or whatever, and they throw something at you that's out of left field, and it just you go, whoa, I didn't think that was what was going to happen.
yeah, and we see that in curling sometimes, right? Like there is no 100% right way to play this game.
No,
And somebody's playing some strange tactics against you and they go out and are making their shots. Sometimes it's hard to know what to do next, or it's a situation you maybe haven't seen before, or the expectations of your opponent too.
yeah, because you want to know what they're going to do, and if you don't, then you're feeling a bit uncertain. And I don't know that there's been a better example in the history of the game than Rachel's team not not showing anyone that they were going to make every tick there was in the world until the Scotties in 2013. And then all of a sudden, here comes Lisa Weigel winning the MVP because she makes every tick, and everybody's like, I don't know what to do about this. But they didn't do it during the season, so they didn't tip anyone off. That was the whole idea, was to essentially surprise people, because there is no surprises when you play these people every week. But then there
Yeah.
was.
We do have some other games going on out on the ice right now. Kevin Tuma, junior team out of St. Paul, leading Nicholas Connolly 5-2. Connolly's out of Pittsburgh. Wesley Wendling out of Wisconsin, taking on Daryl Sobering. Sobering, loser of the A qualifier. I believe this is a drop into a B semifinal. Back right on the ice again. Delaney Strauss 7-0 lead over Megan Thompson. Thompson's team out of Alpharetta, Georgia. Think you'd ever hear that, Chelsea?
I didn't. I was just about to say, a team out of Georgia. That's amazing.
And then, of course, we have Rachel Workin up 4-2 on Kim Rhyme. So as I was updating those scores, I was not paying attention to the last shot there. So we are through four ends.
Single point for Madison Bear. So it's going to
There
be
we go.
4-1 moving forward. She got rid of that dreaded hammer, like I said. And, hopefully can put together some steals here. You're going to see probably a lot of aggression, some double centers, and you got to go hard for a steal. And if you got a force, great. If you're Team Bear right now, given the scoreboard.
So quick message from one of our sponsors here. A special thank you to Goldline. And we'll be right back with the fifth end. First rock up as the center guard. Tim McMakin looking for the draw into the rings here. They want to draw open side. Just sort of put a little bit of pressure on Team Bear. Keep a counter on the edges there while trying to keep that middle open.
I think regardless of what happened there with McMakin's rock, you're going to see Team Bear do this exact same thing. They have to throw 2 center guards, try to get some offense in the middle, try to generate a steal, or worst case, a force.
So this is a scenario we've started to see really evolve in the 5-rock game, which is the double center guard, especially when your opponent throws a corner. You really try and control that middle, and now as the team without hammer, it's going to take probably 2 shots if you make a decent rock here to clear open that middle.
Which is why you'd see, if you were comfortable with it, you would throw that tick probably, and don't let them have the opportunity to throw 2 centers, because you know they're going to ignore your rock, whether it's in the house or whether it's a guard. It doesn't matter. They're going to ignore it and throw a second center anyway. So if you can make the tick on your first one, now they only have 1 center guard. But if you miss it, you might make it worse. So it's just an interesting scenario and different teams will call that different ways based on how comfortable they are with the tick.
Yeah, one of the things that we found with some of our research is that a rock behind the tee line, back 12, back 8, for the team with hammer is actually very much the same as top house around the center guards.
The Donnie B3.
The Donnie B3. There you go. And so now if you're going to play that, if you're going to draw around top 8 and going back 8, back 12 is still the same, why not just throw back 12 tick shots every time?
Exactly. Because if you miss the guard, as long as you're not heavy, if you're trying to throw a back 8, back 12 tick shot and you miss the guard and then you stop in the house, it's still pretty good. So the challenge is,
it's still a made shot.
It's a made shot, but your opponent doesn't necessarily know that, and it's so smart. But the challenge with it is you can't be heavy, but you can't be super light either, because then all of a sudden if you throw T-line, you're throwing them another guard if you hit theirs, right? If you just rub it and they both sit there. So it's a tricky shot, but if you can do it, if you're really comfortable with throwing back 8 foot, back 12 foot weight, then by far it's the call, because you have so many good options. If you make the tick, it's great. If you make it back 8, it's still great.
Yeah, exactly. So that's certainly where weight control is the most important shot there. It's sort of the thing we tell our teams, that if your lead is throwing back 8 weight and they can put it on the back 8 time after time after time, they'll never miss.
Right. And if your lead and weight control is the thing you do well, you'll be a really good lead. Like it can be a foot either way line wise and still be okay as long as the weight's close. So get the weight right and you'll make a lot of shots and you'll be really good at playing lead.
Yeah, it was something Pierre Charette told me back several years ago playing on the tour here in Ontario, and just always throw the right weight. Don't worry about the broom. If you throw the right weight, the skip can figure out what to do with it.
100%. You'll see another long guard attempt here, I would think.
Yeah, keep throwing them up. Just sort of wasting time here at the end of the day. You want to get this as far towards the end before you're starting to make a move inside.
Want to try to line them up, though, so that you don't leave a double peel. It looks like this one's going to hang out a little bit. Needs to get over the hog line. That should be okay. But it does leave the double peel opportunity because it didn't quite curl enough. So they actually brought that deeper than they probably wanted to. But the idea being that bring it deeper to try to get it to curl a little bit more. And it still didn't quite get there. So opportunity here for McMakin to make this double peel and essentially end the end.
Double peel attempt there is close. They do remove the top one.
Tiny bit too thin. So same shot, I would expect either a little bit less ice or a different throw to try to get this to curl a little bit more and ideally stay, if anything, a little bit higher.
We got a shout out from Kevin Grimzetta. I hope I said that right. Hack to Hack Solutions checking in on the stream. Just grouping these a little too close together.
Oh, that couldn't have worked out very much worse than that. Anywhere high side here for McMakin, and both of those reds are gone and the shooter's gone.
Yeah, unfortunate to leave such a basic double like that when you've been doing such a good job of putting up two guards all in long.
Yeah, anywhere higher. And I still think it's maybe just a little bit too much ice or a couple of wide throws. They're not quite getting there for the line either. But if it's higher, then at least it makes the double a lot harder. That one stopping where it did was a pretty easy double.
Yeah, half a stone anywhere there and everything flies.
Even like you could have hit that a quarter, you could have hit it almost 3/4 and still made it. You just had so much margin for error. You don't want to leave doubles with that much room for mistakes. If you're, well, I mean, if you're anybody, but if you're Team Bear at this point down 3.
Just the consistency you continue to look for, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. And it's not, I mean, it's easy to say, it's hard to do, it's practice and it's all kinds of things, but that really is the difference. Throwing up single guards now and need to hope for a miss, which we haven't seen much of from McMakin so far. The only good news for Team Bear is it looks like both of those reds on the side are biting. So at least you're going to make her potentially throw against a few.
Yeah, and the miss might be coming here in the call.
This, if she goes and chases these rocks on the side, that's definitely a mistake.
You know, I can understand wanting to get rid of the ones in the rings, but the danger zone right now for Team McMakin is the rock in the middle.
100%. At the end of the day, if you can't draw full 12 foot, I mean, you're probably not going to win this game anyway. So to hit these two rocks in the house, I understand it. It's a bit scary as a skip to look at those, but the rock, 100%, you're right. The rock that's causing you an issue is this centerline rock. This is a peel all day on the centerline one. And if you make it good, if you hit about a quarter of that rock, you might even get one of the side ones anyways with the intern. So it's a possibility, but at the end of the day, you have to kill that centerline rock.
So playing the hit on the wing.
If I'm Madison Bear, I'm having a little celebration in my head right now, doing a happy dance that I get this centerline guard to come around.
Opportunity here for Madison Bear. Her first skip stone here in the fifth end. looking for something top four, T line. Even if you kind of rope it back four here, that's not the end of the world either.
Get it buried. It looks like this is at least back four, though.
A
Also
little
needs to
heavy.
curl a lot.
Yeah, just a little bit too heavy on that shot. It's going to leave Christine McMakin the opportunity to make the draw herself.
I think she's trying to tap it.
Tap the one out of the rings.
Yeah, that was the last indication I saw, was to sort of tap it and stay open. You could do either one. You certainly could make the draw. The challenge with the draw is that if it's not perfect, if it hangs out a little bit or if it's short, then you're leaving a hit and roll under, and now all of a sudden they're sitting two. But the good news about that is you just threw the draw. So now you have the exact same shot again.
Yeah, I like the tap for the same reason. You know, you
I
kind
don't
of
mind.
bump out into the open. Now you're sitting shot in the back. Now you make Madison Bear kind of have to make a decision too, right?
I like the tap too. The challenge with the tap is if you make it good and she ignores it and then she makes hers good, now you might be giving up a steal.
Yeah, but like I think the reasoning you had at the first part of the shot though was the idea that you're not going to be looking at two.
My reasoning for the first part of the shot was more that you've thrown the draw twice. So I make the draw to the 4 foot. She makes something good. I still make the exact same draw I just threw. Now, if she feels comfortable with this spot, then it doesn't matter. She can make the tap and it's fine. And then she still makes the draw. Maybe she was just playing the draw. I'm not sure.
Well, regardless of the shot call there, that was not close.
And the worst part about it is, again, you'd be better through the rings than you are there, because now the intern's not available to her.
Again, probably just getting out a little bit wider there into a fresh path.
Yeah, it seems like the new path out there with the fresh pebble is tripping some teams up. It just seems like the speed is a little bit different for the first few. I'm sure if you threw a couple down there, it would get good pretty quickly, but it's very different than the worn in paths in the middle when you go just that little bit wider. So if you're edge of the 8 foot, the speed's probably great. And if you're middle 12, it's different.
So that's one of the key differences on curling club ice versus arena ice, correct? The outside is usually a little faster, a little fresher on arena ice.
Well, yeah,
Whereas
depends on which point in the game. But yes, late in the game
Yeah.
for sure, because the middle gets sludgy and flat, and the outside is still nice. And they run the rocks a couple times there, they clip or whatever. Plus, you get 2 practices, and there's been a lot of rocks thrown. So yeah, usually the middle gets slow and the outside stays fast. By the time you get past the 4th end, where in a curling club that's not necessarily true. This looks pretty close. Would have liked that to curl a little bit more, but it's a pretty good shot. Puts the pressure on McMakin here. Doesn't need to move it very far. Tap it 2 feet and you're fine, but don't want to touch the guard, and you can't really miss it on the high side. So it's just a little bit of a tricky shot. Pretty good effort there by Madison Bear.
Yeah, you kind of want to throw this to the 4 foot.
Yeah,
you're playing to give up one here, right?
Yeah, and you let the sweepers take it from there. You try to just basically freeze to it, throw T-line weight, and then they can sweep it the extra 2 feet if the line's good, and if not, it's only 1. The scary part here is if you tick the guard, you might give them 3. If you hit it on the high side, you might give them 2. You just get the weight close. Basically, this is one of those ones it's easy to say that, but as long as you get the weight close, you should be okay.
A little bit of a soft release there on the end.
Looked like it, yeah. They're on this early for line. It's close. Got to get by this guard, though.
Just enough sweep to get that into the rings. Avoiding tapping it in for 3. Unfortunately, looks like a steal of 2 for Madison Bear, and they're still alive here.
That's the tricky part about that shot. Like you said, if you try too hard to make it, sometimes you can you can put yourself in trouble if you just try to throw a draw to the tee line. That's the way to do it, but it's hard to actually do that when you're the person sitting in the half.
You got it. So we're 4-3 now, playing the sixth end. Team Bear with the steal of 2 tightens up this match with Christine McMakin. McMakin will continue with the hammer here in the sixth.
So for Team Bear, I'm not sure your strategy really changes that much. You're only down 1, but you're still down 1 without. So you probably still need to be throwing a double center, trying to go for that steal or the force. Don't need to go quite as hard for the steal probably as you did last end, but you still have to start that way, I think.
Yeah, you're still in trouble. I think you're at best about 25% to win the game anytime you're down 1 without.
I think that's the biggest, the thing that people underestimate the most as curlers is how bad a position you're in when you're 1 down without, because you're within 1 point and you think that it's better, but it's not. It's not a good spot. So I think you need to be more aggressive than a lot of people think they need to be, which is why I'm suggesting that I still think I would be throwing 2 corner guards or 2 center guards to try to set up the steal when, and especially when you're coming from 3 down without, you feel like, okay, now we're close. Well, but you're still in a really bad spot. So you still need to be aggressive and the momentum has now shifted to you. So go hard again.
Yeah, keep the pressure on, keep attacking. You have a team on their heels right now. And yeah, you're right. The position down 3 without, you're probably like a 2-3%er at best. So, you've made a pretty big step, but you still got a lot of work to do yet.
I think we were down 3 without in the Scotties final in 19, and I think our stats were less than a 2 or 3, but something like that. It's not a good situation anyway.
Yeah, it really comes down to your mentality at the end of the day, right?
Well, the nice thing about being down like that, the only good thing about it is that there's no pressure on you. So it's easier to just kind of go for it and play loose and throw everything to make it. You're not trying to protect. You're not trying to miss the right way. Like you have to make everything. So it's a pressure on one hand, but it's kind of freeing on the other hand that you're able to just not worry about consequences because you're probably going to lose anyway. So yeah. Which sounds bad to say, but it's true at that point. So all of a sudden you can play and throw a lot looser than you can when you're up. The noose kind of tightens, right? It's yours to lose. And so the pressure can get to you that way.
Yeah, it's really looking at it that way, right? Like trying to throw shots without pressure, realizing that, losing by 2 or losing by 8 is still a loss right at the end of the day.
Irrelevant, exactly. And that's the thing. If you could throw everything like you throw it when you're down 3 without, you'd probably win a lot more at curling than you do. I mean, I know that's true of me. It's so easy to say, it's so hard to do to get your head to that place. But when you are in that position, then take the positive out of it, right? Like the chances are you're going to lose the game, but at least you're in a position where you can play without any pressure. So throw without any pressure, and you often will make more shots doing it that way.
A bit of chatter around what to do here. The question, do you try and go here, put it on the button, back 4, back button, try and get them chasing around the middle at you? If you can ever convince McMakin to draw, that's step one.
100%. I would be tempted though still to throw a long guard here though, I think. And the challenge is it needs to be just over the hog line for it to be any good. So it's hard to make, but feels a little early to me to be going in again.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge here, right? Like if you're not sure you can get the separation you want, I certainly like going in, and I think they kind of played that last stand and they ran into that challenge, even with a good tight one.
I agree, and I don't mind this call based on where the rocks are. It just seems a tiny bit early to be grouping them, but because that guard is kind of in between being tight and being halfway, it makes the long guard really tough. And if you're not just over the hog line, then it's no good because you're going to line up a short run, but this lines up a run too.
Yeah, where this was left was not ideal. You can actually get all three of these moving now.
This is the only way you don't want to miss that shot. You can miss it on the high side and peel it, it would be fine. If you hit it an inch the other way, you make the shot and you get all three of them going. Luckily for them, they at least got the one in the house, because if they didn't get anything and they left a guard there, it could have been a complete disaster. But if I'm Team Bear, I'm pretty happy with that result. The good news for McMakin is that if they play the same shot on their next one, they're at least running their own rock in. But they're going to have to make a run or a run double, and it's not looking fantastic for them.
Yeah, that's certainly a shot helpful for Bear. This one, again, really out wide, and I think they just waited on it for a little too long.
They're just a little bit fooled by how much heavier it is, and that's easy to do because the question also becomes how much wider is it heavier? Like if I'm 2 inches outside the edge of the 8 foot, is it going to be heavier, or do I have to be 6 inches outside? It all changes pretty quick, and that's really difficult as sweepers trying to give a speed estimate to your thrower, and as the thrower to believe it. But there's not been a single rock that didn't come up at least 10 feet light when they go outside the edge of the 8 foot.
Yeah, we've been on this sheet since the beginning, and we've sort of seen a lot of the same kind of mistakes from all the teams. This ice seems to run fairly true, that if you don't have the right weight, it's going to run a little straighter.
So now just a straight peel, I think. Oh, maybe they're playing the run back. No, they were sweeping that all the way, so they must have been playing the peel, which I think is the right call. Unfortunately, again, now
didn't quite roll far enough.
Yeah, you've got no draw. Your draw's blocked both ways by those corner guards. The red rock on the edge of the 8 foot, pardon me, blocks your in turn, and the yellow rock now blocks your out turn draw. So the rings have shrunk significantly to try to score one for McMakin.
Great opportunity here for Team Bear.
Is she going around the corner? She must be.
That's what it appears to be. Anne-Marie Duberstein throwing third stones here.
Pretty good. Couldn't make it much better than that.
Yeah, that'll certainly get McMakin chasing here.
I still think if you're McMakin that this rock on the top of the 12 foot, this red rock is the biggest challenge. But now you're also facing the challenge in the fact that you don't really have a draw to the middle. Aggressive call
again,
here.
Yeah, another draw here.
I'm a little surprised by this. I'd be tempted to throw a peel on this yellow that's guarding the red. Try to run it into the center line one. And even if you don't, at least you open up that side and they have to throw another guard on it. You might have a hit at some point. If you make this, it's great, but it could go bad in a lot of ways too. Looks really close though.
Yeah, you come up short here, and leaving Bear shot. And it looks like Bear is still shot, and like you were saying, this is not ideal. And that was made pretty close to as good as she could make it.
Yeah, there's not much better that she could have done there if it was like a foot heavier or curled a little bit less. But because the bear rock is so high in the house, it's hard to make that any good unless you go around it all and then you leave her a freeze. I don't know. I'm not sure that would have been the call for me. I think I would have been hitting something like yellow or red, hit a rock out front and try to give yourself, like, again, at this point, I think I'd be giving up on trying to get two and just making sure I have a shot for one.
Yeah, I like that run back of the yellow one. It's sort of a dual purpose shot, right?
Yeah,
the straight peel opens the back red.
Exactly.
If you can ever catch the
if you get the center line
red
one, it's perfect. And if you don't, you still, like you say, you open the back red, at least you might have a hit. They probably need to throw another guard. At least you're making them waste rocks. This way, you've given them an opportunity, although this needs to curl. Oh, that did not work out very well. Both those reds probably fly pretty easily if you hit that top one kind of anywhere. As long as it's not really thin, like maybe a quarter rock doesn't get it, but anything more than that, I think the reds go.
Yeah, you really didn't want to lock that there. That's sort of the worst case scenario.
Yeah, it is the worst case scenario. If it curled a little bit more, it wouldn't be so bad, but where it is right now, I think you're going to see two reds leaving the house and two yellows staying for shot 1 and 2 and 3, actually, over on the side there.
Kathleen Duberstein throwing third stones for McMakin.
Perfect.
Sisters at third stone here.
Oh, it needs to go. I'm a little surprised they didn't throw that harder, but not a bad result. But it does look like red's shot at the back, doesn't it?
It does.
If you hit that right there with any more weight, if you hit that right there with any more weight, the red flies out of there. You're sitting two both buried around corner guards. It's a dream situation.
Looks like Madison Bear has got her shot figured out. Never just get just past the red one, or sorry, the yellow one there. Yeah, looking at options here. The chip off is okay, I guess.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think, obviously, ideally you wrap this around. Again, it's one of those ones you don't have to bury it completely. You just need to tuck like a quarter of it.
Yeah, and leave it as high as possible at the same time too, right?
Yeah, the more separation, the better. Ideally sit two with a piece tucked. You're in a pretty good spot. If you ever rubbed off, at least you're blocking a path into your shot rock.
Draw weight has been a struggle for both these teams. Trying to match line and weight together in one.
This is over curling a lot.
It does protect the back one a little bit.
That's not bad. There's still no way maybe you could just tap that red, but it's awfully difficult. So could have been worse, but not the result they were looking for.
Yeah, they wanted to get kind of that around to the yellow one, and then maybe they would have been better.
Just light at the end of the day. I think that line would have been close if she'd had 3 feet more weight. You could tuck around it, you could rub off it, and it still would have all worked out pretty good. You didn't really want to lock it there, because the opportunity now here for McMakin too is you don't even have to move the back one. You could just draw and try to get 2 out of this now.
Yeah, if you were to go first, just get around there, bite the top of the 4-foot, then that really puts Bear in a lot of trouble.
You never want to.
2 for McMakin is really the key here too, right?
Well, yeah, and it's a no risk too, because she's got a shot for one all day. So that part is guaranteed. So there's really not a lot of risk to try to go around those hooked guards. Like you never want to leave them frozen like that. You want to unlock them so that you have a run back or something. You can at least play something on it. And the way it's landed, they're dead hooked. So if I'm McMakin, I'm looking at this as a glorious opportunity to maybe get a 2 out of nowhere.
Now they're looking at this rock we were looking at earlier. Peel this corner, run it in, open the other yellow.
Maybe she doesn't think she can get through that hole.
Yeah, it's pretty close too, isn't it? To make that draw.
Yeah, with the hard finish at the end, it's not that easy to get by that outside yellow. I think if you thought you could make it, that's the shot, but it's not a big hole with the outturn because of how much it curls. So maybe this is and again, what I like about this is the same thing I liked about it in the first place. At least you open up this side so that maybe you have the same shot on your last one. And if you ever made it and stuffed it there, you'd sit 4.
Yeah, at a minimum, it looks like you're going to have an open shot to score.
Yeah, and if she puts it back in the exact same place, then it might be tough. But if she overcurls or undercurls at all, you've got something easy. And I still think you could make it with the intern right now if you had to, because you only need full 8-foot bite of the 4. So you have a shot right now. It's through the middle versus around the outside, but it's there. I don't mind it. If she thinks she can't get through this hole, then I like this shot.
Sweeper's hard on this, right out of the hand. Nose hit is not really what you're looking for here.
Over curling it is a disaster. That is not good. So now basically a risk-free chance for Madison Bear to put a lot of pressure on McMakin.
This will be the last stone of the 6th end here for Madison Bear. Appears she is lying shot right now.
Ideally, probably put this biting the 4-foot. 3/4.
Deep enough that a nose hit will still count the back one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like just bite the 4-foot, even full 8's good.
A guard short of the rings is going to be better than this, though, unfortunately.
Deep. It can't be deep. That's the only, unfortunately for them, the only thing you can't do, which is what's happening. The good news is that they still, for Team McMakin, they still can't get to shot rock. So it's still a force, but that was an opportunity missed for sure to put some pressure on and maybe get a steal out of this end.
Still having a fair bit of a discussion trying to figure out how to get that redstone.
I'm a little surprised that they're even talking about it. I don't think it's worth you're 1 up already. Just make sure you score your 1. I don't know. I don't know that it's worth chasing. I do think it might be possible with the outturn, but it's over buried. So you have to be pretty perfect.
And there isn't a whole lot of room in there to get through either.
No, I think with the weight you need to throw to make the tap, you're probably getting through the hole okay, but then you could easily just breeze by this back rock or tick the top one. Although the good news, I guess, is if you tick the top red, you might still spin in for shot because all you need to be is full 8-foot, right?
Yeah.
So if your weight's good, it's a weight shot again. If your weight's close, you have a couple of options here that could be okay. And I guess worst case scenario too, you're tied with still, which isn't bad.
Last shot here, sixth end. Christine McMakin looking at a real tough chip out here. Just has to move the red a couple inches to score, and this looks real good.
Really close. Really close. Needs to curl a hair. She's going to move it a little bit.
Looks like that'll be a score of 1.
It's a hard way to get 1, but she got 1, so that's the good news.
It's a single, yeah. Just needed to hit a little bit harder to bring that top one into play. Now we are 5-3 after 6 ends here at the Goldline U.S. Open Contender. We'll be back shortly with the last 2 ends here. Team Bear will get a chance with the hammer again. Let's see if they can use it a little better this time. Back here with the 7th end, Team McMakin leads 5-3 over Team Bear. McMakin of Fargo, North Dakota, taking on Bear of Chaska, Minnesota. First stone ends up as a center guard for
overcurled a
Team
little bit on
McMakin.
them, hey?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the call was, whether they were calling center guard or not.
At the end of the day, it ends up working out pretty good for Team Bear because it's sort of a corner guard. Hoping to have this one a little bit more on the center line, I think. Tighter and stack these center line guards. For McMakin here, anything short of a 3 is not bad. If you go up 2, it's not the worst. If you force or get a blank or anything less than 2 is great. But even if you give up 2, tied coming home with is a pretty good spot. So the risk involved in throwing center guards here, even though you're 2 up, is pretty low because it gives you the chance to get the force without having to take a whole lot of risk of putting yourself in a bad spot.
Yeah, as long as you make your shots, that's the real key here.
Yeah,
you start
but even
missing, and all of a sudden disaster comes into play.
Yeah, you don't want to give up. But what else do? You throw them through. You know,
And
then
you're
that's
looking at giving up 2, probably 3
giving up at
anyways,
least-
if you give them a free roll with the corner guards, right?
Yeah, that's the thing with Five Rock, right? So, I mean, this worked out probably as badly as it could have where those 2 rocks are right now. But
Yeah,
the concept is right.
But the only way you learn is by doing, right? And so for Team McMakin, this is not a criticism of them.
Well, the call
we
is
both agree they're right.
The call is right. They're making
Yeah.
the right call, and that's I think the biggest challenge that you see with teams in this situation is your tendency is to want to go to defense. And I don't think that's the right move. I think what they're doing is the right move. The execution wasn't what it should have been, although they just got away with
Yeah.
one a little bit here with a rub on the guard. But the concept that they're with what they're calling to me is the bigger challenge, and that's what they've gotten right in
Yeah.
this case.
Yeah, and that'll come, right? Like, it's the idea that you got to be throwing, you got to learn how to throw shots under pressure. And when you're playing games like this, you're up two coming home, you got to feel comfortable, you got to feel like you're going to win this game. But, you got to go make those shots now. And, the more you experience that, the better you become at it down the road. And that's why it's so good to see young teams like this learning.
Yeah, when you also feel like those are shots that would be made more often than not. So it's an unfortunate example here where they weren't. But typically those two shots would be made fairly well. They don't have to be perfect. Just like lob a couple guards near the center line kind of thing, and then you're in a pretty good spot. We're seeing a couple misses here execution wise, but that's going to happen. It doesn't mean the strategy's wrong, and it's not wrong. They were right to do what they did.
And you get to, you learn that feel to make those shots. A lot of times these shots early in the ends are, quote, your routine shots. And sometimes when, you put a little bit more importance on it, it changes the way you feel about it. And it's learning how to execute those routine shots consistently. That's really what makes the great players great.
Well, and the pressure on leads at this level is underestimated, I think, where they seem like routine shots, and they are, but you put pressure on any routine shot. People ask me what the best shot I ever made was, and I'll tell them it's to draw the 8-foot to win the Scotties. It's to draw the 8-foot. Should be the easiest shot I threw, but because it was to win the Scotties, it was the best shot I ever made, because it's that different when there's that kind of pressure on it. So lead rocks in these situations where they don't need to be perfect, but they need to be good. It totally changes the dynamic in your head. And you have to learn that, to your point. It's about experience and mental training and all that stuff, where you kind of have to go through it, and you have to figure out what your feel is compared to what you're actually throwing. Like, am I kicking too hard? Do I need to feel like I'm kicking 3 feet light? Or do I need to feel like I'm kicking 6 feet light? Or can I kick normal? You don't know that until you go through it.
Yeah, exactly. I think, when you talk about and you look at a lot of the top skips in the game, very few win the big game the first time they try.
Yeah,
Those are your special cases.
it's very true.
It's sort of that idea when you get in the hack, throwing that last rock, for any young skip out there, you got to treat the experience as a learning opportunity. Just because you miss it once, twice, 5 times. You look at some of the greatest skips out there, and they've gone through several hiccups before they finally won it. And it's the kind of thing that you learn at the end of the day. And like you said, right, when you kick out, your body reacts differently than your brain under pressure.
That's the thing. And it's actually something that you can practice and train. And I know I've done it, and I'm sure most top players have at some point, is you can train it in the sense that I can elevate my heart rate somehow in practice, whether it's not because the shot means anything, it's practice. But if I have to do 40 jumping jacks or 10 push-ups or whatever to get my heart rate up, and then throw the rock, and then see what that does to how hard I kick versus what I feel like I kicked. Because that's the part that will mess you up, is when the adrenaline is pumping. Most of the time you feel like you kicked light and you kicked pretty hard. So your tendency always will be to overthrow that rock under pressure. But what you need to learn is how much is that your tendency and how much of it is your feeling. So what do I need to feel? Do I need to try to kick 3 feet less or 6 feet less? Or can I kick the same? And that's a moving target as well, but that's why you need to be doing it in practice. And to practice without any pressure isn't necessarily the most beneficial. There's a purpose to that. But if you're not at some point putting yourself in a situation where your heart rate is elevated, because it's going to be when you're playing in a Olympic final or a Scotties final or Brier final, whatever it is, your heart rate's going to be jacked through the roof. That's just the reality. And so then what does that do to you? And that's not specific to skips. Like, you're as a lead and you're throwing a tick, like Lainey made 2 ticks in our Scotties final in 2016 and the 10th end that changed the game.
Yeah.
But if she doesn't make those, so her heart rate is as elevated as mine was throwing the draw to win the game, because her shots are as important or more important than my last one, right? Like, that's how crazy it is. And you need to know how the pressure affects you.
Yeah, that's such a truth. It's This game is a tricky one, right? Like, it's not about going out and trying harder and playing harder. You're playing hockey, you're playing soccer, football, all of those sports, just go try harder, go work harder, go out there and bang, right? Whereas you got to find that happy medium here and figure out that I call it controlled aggression.
When it's not reactive. And I think that
Yes.
the thing with those sports is that when you go to practice and you take enough passes in a certain way, or you're in this position enough in front of the net that you have a gut reaction and it's sort of just in you and you don't think about it. But with curling, it's like golf. You have so much time. You have so much downtime and you have to control your brain. And that's the hardest part. Is like
Got
at
to turn
some
that
point,
baby off.
ideally, and that's I think it was Gary Player, one of my favorite quotes ever, that, like, was leading a tournament by however many going into Sunday, a major, and they said, how do you feel? And he said, well, if I'm not thinking good tomorrow, then it's going to be a battle. If I'm thinking good, I should win. If I'm not thinking, then no one will touch me. And it's so true, and it's wild, but it's so hard when you have so much time to think, to try not to think. It's insane, but it's like that's something that's unique about curling, about golf, is it isn't reactionary. It's about controlling your head as much as it is about anything else.
Yeah, I think that is massive advice for players out there who are trying to get to the top. If you can kind of, positive thinking, figuring out how to get into that pre-shot routine, that all helps you turn your brain off at the same time too, and it just gets you into go mode.
When I was a kid, um, that's what my dad like pounded into my head relentlessly, is that's what does it. Your pre-shot routine is because then you feel like you're at the club, like you lose the consequences because it feels normal. So people that go to practice and don't go through the whole process, like nothing drives me more crazy than people that go to practice and they don't clean their rock, or they don't line up, or they don't, everything needs to be the same as you would do it in a game, or else why are you doing it? The whole point of practice is to ingrain that in you so that when you're in the pressure situation, you feel like you're at your home club and you're on sheet 2 by yourself throwing practice rocks. That's why it works. So if
So
you
when you
don't
were
go
throwing
through,
that draw in Grand Prairie to win the Scotties, hit
Mhm.
the 8 foot, where were you throwing that?
you I
Which
was
club
at
were you? Where were you
I,
visioning yourself?
I was at the Glencoe. I was at my home club at the time, or I was at the Fort. It doesn't matter which one it is. The
Yeah.
point is that if you timed my pre-shot routine for that shot versus for any other shot, and this is the thing that, again, the parallel with golf. If you watch any top golfer, their approach from the time they approach the ball to the time they hit it is within tenths of a second, because they're that good at the pre-shot routine and it's that consistent. I watched Henrik Lundqvist before. There was a video posted a little while ago, and they were side by side, and it was different games in different years, and they were like, "This is not a replay. It's not a duplicate. This is how accurate it is," and that's not even in the game. That's before the game.
Yeah.
Those routines are the thing that gets you through. And I remember my dad saying that when I was little, because people go, "How do you do it when you're on TV and hundreds of thousands of people are watching you?" And he said, I'm not there. I'm not in Regina at the Briar. I'm at the Granite.
Yeah.
And I'm throwing the same draw to the 4 foot that I've thrown at the Granite 1,000 times over in practice. That's why. But if you don't go through the same pre-shot routine, then that doesn't apply.
Yeah, I think this goes back to one of my favorite baseball movies where it's really a big part of the whole thing, and that's For Love of the Game,
Yeah,
where he talks about clear the mechanism the whole time. He's
exactly.
trying to get himself into that silent space where it's just him and the catcher.
Well, and that's all you can do. Like, that's how you do it. And it's easy to say and it's hard to do, but that's what, to me, practice. Like, yes, there's technical parts, and I do video and I do sliding through cones and I do all that stuff, but a big part of practice that I think people don't think about is that part. It's just getting your pre-shot routine that dialed, that you do it the same every time, and that gets you into this safe space in your head where you're not on TV in front of a million people, and there isn't 8,000 people in the stands cheering for you or against you or whatever. Like, it silences everything.
So we're getting down to skip stones here in the seventh end. Interesting setup for Madison Bear.
a really good
She can kind
freeze
of.
by McMakin there. So there,
Yep.
Madison Bear needs to, she probably has to move that a little bit. It doesn't have to go far, but if she could ever stay half a rock on the center line side, frozen, and unlock that back one, there's a
Oh, that'd be
chance for,
gold.
yeah, there's a chance for a big end here.
So it's her first of two here. This just looking a little heavy here.
Yeah.
Real
Probably,
good line. If she would have had the right weight, that would have been perfect.
or vice versa. The weight might have been okay with a little less ice too. Like the weight
Yeah.
wasn't that far off.
Yeah, if you hit that half, three quarters with that weight, that would have
Yeah.
been great.
Would have been perfect. You could make the adjustment either way, but you
You
needed
gotta
to
make
make the
one or the other.
adjustment. Yeah.
So we're in the seventh end here of the Goldline U.S. Open Contender. This is a women's round robin game. There are 6 teams playing this weekend. Madison Bear, Christine McMakin, 2 of the young up and coming under 25 skips in the United States.
They're looking at coming in top 8, top 4 here.
I think the discussion was that short was okay. They were indicating, tapping in front of the rings too.
I'm not convinced that I wouldn't just be throwing it short.
Yeah, I think this is just getting a little greedy maybe, or, not reading the situation quite right.
At the end of the day, you're going to leave her probably some sort of run back, whether you're top 4 or longer. So then make it longer. I mean, if you get around this and get buried, like not buried, but at least sort of a quarter to a third buried, then there is no double and you're fine. But if you're wide open, top 8, that's a shorter double than if you're halfway. Like you could throw this halfway and split the center line, and she's got to make a 15-foot run back pick to get her 3.
Yeah, I don't think you want to be scared of her drawing here.
No, you want her to draw. You're
What's
really
that? Don't force the other skip into the only shot they can make.
well, and you're really happy with the force. So
Yeah.
why take any risk to give her a big end when you don't have to?
And this just heavy.
She's going to get away with it though, because it's going to take away any chance at a big end because of the tap. You might be able to make this for 2 really quietly, like back 4 foot.
Yeah, you
And
just want to
just
kind of
touch,
push it past the
yeah,
red one, right?
like chisel the yellow and stay in the 4 foot. It's not easy, but it's there. And the good news about that is that if you don't make it perfect, you probably still get 1 out of it. So the risk is fairly low.
Last shot of the seventh end here. Madison Bear, most likely just drawn for 1, but if you can ever get a little movement on the other yellow stone in there, you might be able to get a 2. Yeah, it looks like they're just indicating button here, and they're not even trying the draw or the chip here. And looks like that's good. A single point goes on the board for Team Bear. They trail Team McMakin 5-4 heading into the final end. McMakin will have hammer in the 8th, coming home here at the Goldline U.S. Open Contender. The U.S. Open events, Contender, and Championships, and the new mixed doubles event are hosted and run by Cold Granite Companies. Owner, president, and 2010 Olympian John Benton has been building these events as part of a larger curling business focused on growth. John has long been coaching adults and juniors and now sponsoring a number of emerging and established teams. Team Tuma, Seneker, Burr, Hebert are just a few. Cold Granite also works in facility consulting. John has been sharing his experience in opening 4 seasons to help other dedicated facilities get off the ground. Cold Granite is totally focused on growing the game. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. I know John Benton, manager at the Four Seasons Curling Club here, has been working really hard to try and grow and build curling in the United States, and it's really exciting to see what Twin Cities is looking like. Of course, Four Seasons, one of the first of its kind to open, followed by, I know Denver has a similar model. Of course, Chaska and a number of other curling clubs continue to open around the Twin Cities and across the country.
John's done an amazing job, obviously has, incredible knowledge of the sport and team dynamics and things. But at the end of the day, like the business side of it as well, it's really impressive to watch what he's done with these clubs, and then to share that knowledge and try to build that model in other clubs is just such a forward thinking approach. And it's really great. And it's great to see the growth in the US and to have people like John on the side of building the sport versus trying to just focus on themselves. Like the lack of selfishness there is lovely, and he's an impressive guy, and it's been awesome to watch the success that we've seen from what he's done.
Yeah, I think a lot of the work and focus is on the teams outside the top group at the same time too. An event like this, the U.S. Open Contender, was set up originally with the intent to qualify some teams for the championship event in January, right around New Year's Eve there, and they kind of keep the top dogs out of this. But this year with COVID and everything going on, everybody's looking for a chance to play. I know Rich Ruonen and Corey Dropkin, both 2 of the top teams in the United States, are playing this weekend. And so, it's just great to be able to have the opportunity to get on the ice. So into the 8th end here. Interesting call out of Madison Bear. It looks like they're going straight to the corner guards.
Definitely interesting. I think concept being that it makes it harder to make a double peel against you, and what you're trying to do is sit 2 or 3 and hope for a miss, right?
Am I missing something here? Who's got the hammer here?
McMakin.
Throwing yellow stones?
Yep.
I see this as the 3rd yellow being thrown now.
Oh, unless I'm looking at the screen.
Me too. I'm looking for a missing stone if the hammer is right. We'll try and get confirmation on that.
So that's 3 yellows, so I would suggest that the hammer on the screen might be wrong.
So it looks like it was a steal last end. That is what's marked on the board. So it is Christine McMakin up 6-3 coming home.
Oh, that's a lot different.
That would be why that would happen.
Makes a lot
We'll
more
correct
sense.
that for you. So it looks like the Team McMakin lead came short. They tried to peel it off, hit it on the nose. It was just one of those days. September curling.
We're rusty too.
You got it. Yesterday wasn't beautiful. You've helped pick up the day, Chelsea. I really appreciate you coming on board and commentating a couple of games today. I know this is going to be it for you. You got birthday celebrations tonight to take care of.
I do.
But we'll be back with streaming all day. We got 3 more draws to go. I believe Angry Bird is coming in next draw. Sean Murray will be online. And I think we'll get John Benton on for the game as well. Yeah, that's not quite what she was looking for there. Love the draw around the corner guard here, don't you? Looks like they're going to try and go around the corner guard here on this side.
Looks like she's maybe indicating that short's okay. I'm not necessarily sure it's that good because you're going to see some kind of peel combination coming from McMakin, and you're not going to leave a lot of separation between them if you're throwing a guard here. So I think you want to be in, even if you're back 12 foot, it's not bad. You just got to try to sit a few at the end of this.
Yeah, I don't love grouping them on this side either.
No, I don't like it. I think short's not okay. I think the miss here is deep as long as you're still in the house.
Yeah, I think they're really thinking that, you know, a guard to protect that stone. But if you were ever just to draw one around that other corner and they ignore you and hit the other one, that's not a bad thing for you. You rope another one around the corner, now you lie 2 buried.
I agree. I don't mind the call around this guard, but I think you have to be thinking in the house at all costs, which was not their approach and is not the result, obviously.
Yeah, and if you're a little bit heavy there, say back 8, back 12,
I actually
could chip off your own, roll under,
even if you
better.
don't, even if you don't, you go right by it.
Yeah.
Like you probably don't want to be top 4 because then you leave her a double. But if you're back 8, the double's really tough, and you know they're rolling away if they make it, and now you've got another draw around the guard. This worked out. I mean, the nail in the coffin a little bit is that it didn't even curl enough to guard this rock, so now it's open.
Looking at the outturn through the port.
Hitting either one of these guards is a pretty okay result. For McMakin, I would think that they would actually rather hit their own yellow on the outside than they would the red, because that's a really long, high corner guard out to the wing so much that it's almost not even useful.
It's like you've been watching the live feed.
Well, I think that's a smart miss.
Yeah. Yeah, it opens up the door here. You know, they're going to try and draw another one in here, which again, same problem there. Yeah. I think Madison's looking at that stone and seeing it half open, and then she's thinking she has to go make it perfect. If you ever just went around the other one, now you really make it interesting.
One, I think half open is conservative. That's 7/8 open from the hack, probably. At least 3/4. So, so then again, when you go around it, the chances of you setting up a double are pretty good. So why not use the other one that's a better corner guard anyway, because it's tighter to the rings and closer to the center line. That actually worked out not bad. Made the top rock a tiny bit more buried, and there's no double. So at least making McMakin sort of come to a decision here a little bit. I think as long as you kill this, though, like even if you roll out, which is probably actually the call, just rip it.
You still made a wider target there at the end of the day, though.
True.
Put the broom somewhere close and fire it, and you should be able to make contact with something here.
I think they would have liked to try to go around it, but I think they were worried it might go through the house, which
Yeah.
it could have.
In the end, still a better position than locking it on the top one, that's for sure.
Agreed. Looks pretty safe here, although if she sticks over here, now you've got something to freeze to. Don't really want that, like your shot rock, so it might look like it's good, but if I'm McMakin, I don't want that rock there.
Looks like they're going to go around the center here.
I think that's a good call. I don't know that you need to freeze it yet. It sets up a jam possibility. If they
Do you like going around the corner here? The other corner?
I don't mind it. The problem is the yellow shot, so then they might ignore it and go around, and then you've got to make a run double. I kind of like this call, to be honest, and then you put.
Gotta hope that they play the run or they play some sort of a draw and bounce off, maybe make a double, you then roll over and lie
Right.
three that way.
Just make her make a decision. Like I think it makes her think more, which is why I like it. Obviously, that result is not as helpful
Not
as I
ideal.
would like it to be, but I don't mind the call though. Be shot, make her make a choice, peel a guard, run it back, and then you hope you get like a slight miscue, and then you could still freeze on this back rock if you needed to, right? And set up a multiple score like a 3 that way. As it stands, if she makes contact with this one, there's not much good
This might be the
happening.
game.
Yeah. Could be it.
Christine McMakin looking to remove this red bear counter. If she's successful at doing so, and it's looking pretty good, she'll win this game here, and she's gone it.
That is the game.
And the roll to add to it. Couldn't be better. As they kick the stones, that'll be it. Be X's here in the 8th end. It'll be a 6-3 final, and McMakin will improve, and I believe that makes them 3-1 now, dropping Bear to 1-3 on the weekend. Chelsea, I'd really like to thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you on board for the last 2 draws here.
It's my pleasure to be a part of it. Thanks for having me.
Hopefully we'll be doing some more of these streams, and maybe we'll chip in and get you to come on board and do a few more games. It's always great to hear your insights and the thinking behind what goes on in the game at the top level, and the development and everything there too. And I wish you all the best tonight. Happy birthday, and I hope you can have a great time this evening.
Thanks so much, Jerry. Thanks for having me. It was a blast to be a part of, and hope to be able to do more of it in the future.
So we'll be back in about an hour. Actually, we're supposed to be on the ice now, so we'll figure out what time the next draw is coming up. We've got Sean Murray and I think John Benton joining for commentary, and we'll check in for the game. But be sure, if you follow us on Facebook, like, share, comment. All that social help helps reach more people. And, we're not asking for money from you guys. Just a simple share, some likes, some comments. Just voice your opinions and let us know where you're watching from on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, hit that notification button so we'll let you know next time we're live. Anyways, until then, thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll be back shortly with the next draw here from the Goldline U.S. Open Contender in Blaine, Minnesota.